Patch 1.38 of Dragon Ball FighterZ is here, and as we were expecting, it's a massive patch. However, I think a lot of us are surprised with the overall direction that Bandai has taken with the patch. I don't know if Arc System Works had any input on the overall balanced direction of the patch, and considering that this very much feels in line with what Bandai's been doing with the game for the past couple of years in terms of escalating the craziness of the game, I don't think Arc System Works actually has a say in what went into the patch itself. I think they were there namely to fix some of the spectator issues that were plaguing the game. As it is right now, all of the spectator bugs that we've been experiencing, primarily with the audio, have been fixed. We now have fully working audio whenever we are spectating a game. Lobby rematches have been fixed as well, so we don't have to continually go back into the lobby. These are reported changes, so perhaps this can come up occasionally, but it seems like finally we have like the best viewing experience for Dragon Ball FighterZ possible within patch 1.38. And I think that was the extent of Arc System Works' involvement with the patch, just basically cleaning up the bugs that Bandai Namco couldn't figure out after 590 days of working on the rollback netcode in order to give us the initial release of this. To get things started off here, let's go ahead and explain the format of these videos themselves. They're going to be largely flashing back between the current version of the game, 1.38, with all of its changes. And whenever we're talking about 1.38 and demonstrating 1.38 gameplay, we're going to be on space on this stage. This is from my updated PC copy. Whenever we're going to compare that to the old version of the game, 1.37 for PC, or I think it's like 1.34 for PlayStation 4, 1.35, something like that. We're going to be transitioning over to the Cell Games Arena that has all of the old system mechanics and the previous version of the game effectively. So this is going to be something that's consistent throughout the entire series of videos as we go throughout the entire cast. Let's start with one of the simpler changes to explore, the increased cooldown on C Assist. We're going to go ahead and put these side by side just to give you a sense of how long the cooldown has changed between the two versions. It seems like about a 2 to 3 second change, so it's not as drastic as having like the 18-second cooldown that we had before, but it's still going to be noticeable. As a result of the C Assist cooldown change, though, many C Assists have seen several adjustments, either to the location of spawning or to their startup, probably as a means to sort of buff these assists to make them more immediately impactful. In the previous patch, JS didn't have any Gatling options across the entire cast. You basically could just use JS and then go into a special cancel. In the current patch, we now have the option to Gatling this into jump heavy or jump down heavy. This has a lot of implications depending on the property of the individual character's ki blast in terms of their combos and pressure, so we'll explore each of this individually, but this is something that you should definitely be aware of when it comes to this patch. There might be some moves here that aren't affected by this as well, just because they might be like some beam properties in there, but I'll let you know as we go through. This fairly seems like a universal change. This next change is a little convoluted, but I think I have it figured out. Basically, there's going to be some attacks that are invincible to everything except anti-air attacks within the game now. And before, these attacks might have been able to get beaten by 2H, but they would have still beaten other anti-air options. Now, if you have a move that loses to 2H, it's also going to lose to other anti-air moves. The only way I can really demonstrate this, I think, is with Blue Vegeta as an example. So before, if you tried to use Goku Super Saiyan, of course, and his medium or EX Tatsu to anti-air Blue Vegeta's command grab with the armored property, this is what would happen in the previous patch. As you can see, Vegeta is able to take a few hits of the EX Tatsu immediately, and depending on the situation, you can get a different outcome. Sometimes Goku could hit here, sometimes it would just not work at all. This meant that you weren't going to be relying on using this particular move of Goku's to deal with this option. Not that you really would try to in the previous patch for other reasons as well. This is how the same situation plays out now. As you can see now, Blue Vegeta's command grab immediately loses to the Tatsu. This is in part due to the change to Blue Vegeta's EX command grab, but it falls in line with this particular change to the system mechanics. So basically, I think what this can mean is that whoever has an anti-air attack first, the second one should win over the first one. That's the general principle I'm walking away from. Maybe there's going to be some contradictions to that depending on how all the different moves from the characters are going to interact. All level 1 supers in the game have been adjusted to now be treated as 4-frame reversal options. Before, basically you would have only a couple handful of level 1s that might have this property to it before. So check out the situation and how it looked in the previous patch. As you can tell, I tried to do the instant transmission Kamehameha for Goku here, and he lost to Vegeta's jab since his super iframes were at 7 before on startup. This is how it behaves now. There's a lot to unpack with this change, I think. For starters, let's get into teams that can set up safe DHCs for themselves. Now, basically, if you're able to force a situation, like after a 6M or after a Vanish, if the enemy has the ability to save DHC and swap their characters with the bar to do so, there's basically not a thing that you can necessarily do about this. If you mash into the reversal, you're going to get hit. If you respect it, because you have to now, then the opponent can get a safe DHC into their other character. This basically helps people manage their life bar on their teams, but in a way that I don't know is actually healthy or not for the game as a whole. Of course, if you do have any kind of bar on your side, you are able to react to these super flashes with a Vanish. However, this is not going to be universal across the cast, as some characters are going to have level 1 supers that cover this backside. Or just outright don't let you vanish in the first place. With the increased startup of iframes, there's also means that there's plenty of neutral implications for this change too. You could potentially counter your opponent's zoning by throwing out these supers, and once they commit to a special move like this, they're not going to be able to counter Vanish against it. This is a kind of a interesting change, to say the least. I'm getting a lot of Marvel vibes with this. Of course, being that this is only a 4-frame reversal option for characters, it's not like you don't have to worry about leaving 1 to 3 frame gaps in your offense and all of a sudden have to deal with a DHC situation. Again, you are able to usually react to most level 1s with a Vanish, and then you're basically resetting to neutral, which I think an opponent, if they're under any kind of pressure, is more than happy about that. It feels like a very big defensive buff overall, but one that does have risk to it. If the opponent does this and they only have a single bar of meter and they're betting all of their meter on this reversal, they could get blown up for it, and I don't see why you would necessarily do that when like guard cancel exists and would generally be a little more reliable. Still, I think we might see this be used in more aggressive contexts, like basically countering projectiles in neutral, or even like dealing with super dash situations or crazy special moves, so that, yeah, the opponent could throw out some belligerent EX option, but you could just super them back with your superior iframes and higher priority. We'll see how this change ultimately impacts the game, but I don't know. Again, it's very weird to dissect this early on. Potentially the biggest change of the patch, and the one that you're going to be seeing a lot of Twitter clips flying around about, is the change to sparking. While your sparking is active, you are now able to cancel any character special moves into other special moves as well as super dash. That's an example of what you can potentially do with this. Now let's explore a couple of factors about this. I was doing some lathing with Blueku, and with my discoveries, I realized there was a few things I missed when I originally recorded the video. I also discovered that in my other clips with Super Saiyan Goku that I had before, I had a couple of sound settings incorrect for my OBS, and so that's why you weren't getting the game audio from this here screen. So that should be fixed going forward. But let's talk about this state of being real quick. So, while you can special cancel in other special moves, there is a finite limit to how many you can use. Namely, you can use the version of each special move once within these strings. As you can see, I was not able to get another follow-up light shoulder there. This is also true on block. So, there is a little bit of limitations happening here within these sequences. Because of that, you can basically kind of narrow some of the outcomes down to a couple of situations. Like, for example, with Blue Goku here, you are able to tick throw off of these shoulders, but that just creates the strike-throw mix-up, and how effective this is going to be something that needs to be labbed out. There's also a very important detail to explore with this, and that's going to be off of 6M. You can special cancel off of this as well. Nah. The same thing also applies to Spark in this situation. And as you can imagine, you only get one Spark per airborne action that you get as well. So while there is a lot of potential in here, there's certainly not like just unlimited cancels all the way through. You're going to have to be able to basically reset your combo strings to link these several specials together. See that empty vanish situation be dealt with, Bandai has continually refused to do so. Instead, it feels like what they're trying to do with this is that they're trying to juice up sparking so much to give you the most unbelievable pressure, combo potential, all this stuff for your anchor character that you don't want to even think about spending your sparking for the first character. You could spend it on your first character, but with the damage so high in the game, likely you're going to be able to TOD without spark or 2-touch at the very least, so sparking to kill the point character in the point war doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You can spend Spark early to keep your team together, but then you don't have access to what feels like nearly infinite options for your anchor character to just abuse their special moves. And certainly when these special moves were put together, there was no balance and consideration for being able to cancel them into other special moves when that character had sparking, so we'll see just how much this breaks the game. Already we're seeing a lot of crazy combos that you can do, but people are already starting to lab out some intense pressure sequences that basically can just continually true string the opponent until you finally go for some sort of mix-up on them. We'll see. I feel like this is going to be an aspect of the game that you love or hate. You're going to see a lot of crazy things because you can do a lot of stupid stuff with this particular change, but most of the changes that you're going to see aren't optimized yet. You might be seeing clips of Super Saiyan Vegeta just spamming like infinite ki blast for no damage whatsoever. It looks funny and it's corny, but that's not actually how this game is going to be played at a high level. Now, don't get me wrong, I do think there are going to be characters with special moves and sequences that are going to be used and abused at a high level, but we're going to have to take some time to explore and see what actually stands out. There's simply way too many implications across the entire cast of characters for me to explore each special move and how it interacts with Spark in this video series. So keep that in mind, that this is a change that you are going to have to largely explore for yourselves, and I think this could be a defining feature for the game going forward. It very much feels like they're trying to make sparking an X Factor style thing where, yeah, you can save it for your point character and try and keep your whole team together, but your anchor character could be absolutely juiced with this, and having this for 22 seconds to do all kinds of crazy things seems to be a possible game plan. We'll see where this falls, but I think this is a change that you're either going to love or hate.